Boy, things are getting insanely worrisome here in the United States of America. I've been paying attention over the weekend when I wasn't watching football to some of the shit that's been going on with the Nazis in this country, led by, of course, the Lord God, Christ, Jesus, Donald Trump, the chief Nazi, Antichrist, whatever you want to call him. His millions of followers are starting to demonstrate their total disdain for, contempt for, and refusal to operate within the law. Well, in Lake Lurie, North Carolina, the Trump scum, the traitorous filth, stuck their heads up out of their hidey holes over the weekend. And as reported by the Washington Post, people who were there as federal emergency response teams to help the folks who were devastated by Hurricane Helene and then a follow-up by Milton. These federal emergency response people on Saturday had some of their employees were operating in Rutherford County, North Carolina, which was really devastated by the hurricanes. Rutherford County is in the western part of the state. It's very mountainous out there. But these emergency response people had to stop working and move to a different area because there were armed militia, these white son of a bitches, these big-bellied, beer-swilling scum who can barely fucking talk plainly, were roaming through the mountains with their little militia uniforms on, the slapped-together shit to make them look fearsome when they really look like clowns. And they were threatening government workers in that region who were there to help people. And that's according to an email sent to federal agencies by the U.S. government who were working with emergency response in western North Carolina. About 1 p.m. Saturday, as reported by the Post, an official with the U.S. Forest Service, which is supporting recovery efforts after Helene, destroyed, just devastated that part of the country. And they're working, the Forest Service people are working with FEMA. An official with the Forest Service sent an urgent message to a bunch of federal agencies, and the message was this, quote, FEMA has advised all federal responders in Rutherford County, North Carolina, to stand down and evacuate the county immediately. The message stated that National Guard troops, quote, had come across 2 trucks of armed militia saying they were out hunting FEMA. End quote. Now think about this for a second. It's as though the United States has been invaded now by a foreign government, a foreign tyranny, an invader who has come to this country and is making it clear that they are going to start killing our fellow citizens. In this case, emergency workers who are trying to save the lives and help people rebuild their lives in the areas devastated by Helene and then Milton. Was it Milton? Yeah, I guess it was Milton. But can you imagine you're a FEMA worker, you're trying to restore power, you're trying to restore clean water, you're trying to help people fill out the proper forms in order to get emergency aid. And all of a sudden, a truckload of these fucking yahoos, these white boy bastards show up with their guns and their beer bellies and their stench. And they say, we're out here hunting FEMA, which is how they talk. The email that was sent by the U.S. Forest Service went on to say the incident management teams, those are the emergency workers, have been notified and are coordinating the evacuation of all assigned personnel in that county, end quote. The evacuation of all assigned people in the county, Rutherford County, who are there to help people devastated by Hurricane Helene, because these fucking pigs, these psychos, these nutcases, these white men got their costumes on and picked up their weapons and decided to ride around the county threatening people to stop helping their neighbors. Two federal officials confirmed those emails to the Washington Post. The National Guard then referred questions to FEMA when the National Guard was asked about this incident, North Carolina National Guard. And according to the Washington Post, one Forest Service official who is trying to coordinate the Helene recovery said responders then moved to what he called a safe area. What the fuck? A safe area? A safe area. In the United States, in the mountains in North Carolina, first responders trying to save people's lives, they had to move to a safe area because a bunch of fucking white devils were roaming the countryside with their beer guts and their guns? I'm having a real hard time with this. Real hard time. I know so many people in North Carolina. I've said before, I lived there twice, both times in Raleigh. I know that state. I went to school there for a while at NC State in Raleigh. I know the state of North Carolina. And I know that in those backwoods, up in those hills, you have white people who are, I don't know, first of all, they're not educated. They're a bunch of groveling fucking idiots. I'm sorry if this sounds insulting. It's intended to be. These are son of a bitches who live back in the hollows and the woods and have no interest whatsoever in the decency of life. They have had their brains eaten alive by this Christian horse shit, and now they think they're working for Donald Trump to save this republic. By Sunday afternoon, yesterday afternoon, the emergency personnel from FEMA went back to work, according to the official who was responding to these inquiries and the official who sent the email to workers in the area. And he had to speak on condition of anonymity when he spoke to the Post. Now, what happened over this weekend in North Carolina is the latest example of what have become growing concerns about the safety and security and the lives of government workers in Western North Carolina. And keep in mind, that's an area where so many towns were almost wiped off the map after that hurricane tore through there 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about Helene. And in the weeks since, lies and bullshit pouring out of the mouth of this fucking cockroach Donald Trump has been spreading in that region, spreading in areas of the country where people are historically stupid assholes because their brains have been eaten alive by this Christian shit. Boy, I'm angry. Yeah, no kidding. So Trump has been spewing this poison every place he lands, like a huge orange fly, like some kind of a fucking disease-carrying fly. Trump is going around the country giving speeches, and in all the speeches, he is promoting the idea that the FEMA workers are there to take your land. or they're there to arrest you. And these dumb son of a bitchin' idiots in various parts of the country are buying it, are believing it. This is why I cannot help but use the kind of language I do. How in the name of all things insane can there be people in the United States who believe this shit, this garbage that Trump is fire hosing into people's brains? I can't help but think about, in moments like this, I can't help but think about some of my black friends who tried to educate me over the years and did a good job. Or as Steve used to say, we got to edumacate you, Malloy. Well, I've been edumacated about how black folk have been warning. They have been warning about this type of white devil for a couple hundred years now, frankly, but especially after Jim Crow and the struggle for human rights in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up to now, the struggle for human rights by black folk against these white devils. I've been told about this. And my attitude about it for the most part was, hey, listen, my dusky brothers and sisters, what your fears are never going to happen. I mean, white people are insane in this country. A lot of them, probably a third of the white population, is certifiably nuts. I understand that. That's not just my opinion. That's the percentage that's been put out there by sociologists, clinicians who understand the extent of this mental illness that is racking the United States. But I said to my black friends, yeah, okay. A lot of white people in this country are nuttier than a goddamn fruitcake, but I don't think that, it would get to the point that you're telling me eventually it's going to get to. Well, surprise, fucking surprise. To me, it's not a surprise to black folk who have been watching this shit develop slowly, persistently, over the past 200 years. And here it is. The insanity of a part of our population that is a direct threat, a murderous threat, an enemy to the Constitution and to people in this country, regardless of their skin color, who believe in trying to make our democracy work. These son of a bitches don't want the democracy to work, these white devils that are now roaming the goddamn countryside in North Carolina with their beer guts and their fucking guns. They don't want the country to work because they're such slob, unaccomplished bastards themselves. They cannot stand to see somebody show up in their vicinity who is intelligent, who is white or black, who works for the government, who is trying to repair people's lives. These white devils can't stand that. They want the vermin-infested chaos that is very similar to their homes, to the places they live. I have traveled Western North Carolina extensively, and parts of North Georgia and Southern Tennessee. I can tell you, if you've never traveled the back roads, the so-called blue highways, and then the back roads, the country roads in those areas, and seen some of the scenes of poverty and ignorance and stupidity and just a hellish landscape. And if you look at it, you think, how in the fuck can people live like this? And it's in that environment that Donald Trump and his pet ape, J.D. Vance, have found fertile ground to plant this horror shit destruction that they're pumping out there to people, anybody who will listen. And there are millions of people who are listening. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical Talk Radio Network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.